Welcome to London, one of the wealthiest, most iconic and most visited cities on earth. But like any big city, it's got its fair share of problems. I visited the worst places, so you don't have to. Join me, the Absolute Ranker, as we visit the 20 worst places in London. Well, stick a pony in me pocket, it's Peckham. The first thing you notice when visiting Peckham is the graffiti. I mean, it is covered in it. Every square millimetre, it gives Peckham a gritty, yet colourful feel. First place I stumbled on was Peckham Riviera, which was a big indicator of how gentrified Peckham has become. It hasn't always been this way. In the 1960s, the area underwent massive redevelopment and the North Peckham estate was built. In the 1980s, Britain was suffering huge social issues, unemployment and a lack of opportunities, and not many places were worse off than the high-rise Sink estate, becoming one of the most deprived and dangerous in Western Europe. Finally, in the late 1990s and the early 2000s, North Peckham estate was regenerated and rejuvenated with state and European Union funding, albeit alongside high crime and devastating violence, the most high-profile case being the stabbing to death of 10-year-old Damilola Taylor in 2000. Some issues still exist, gangs still operate in the area, but nowadays the situation, thankfully, is far, far calmer than it was. Phew! Copeland Park is the self-styled cultural quarter of Peckham, with art installations, a rooftop bar and cinema. Peckham Rye Lane has history going back to at least the 19th century. You might even get lucky while you're there and see the Orient Express going across the rail bridge. You can get just about anything on Rye Lane: African food, Irish butcher, fresh and exotic fruits, pie and mash, jelly deals, TV, deep freeze, David Bowie LPs, and if you're really boring, get a KFC's. Peckhamplex is an independent cinema that, until 1994, was a Sainsbury's supermarket. The cinema is popular and rightly so. They charge just $5.99 to watch a film. Peckham Library, which reminds me of a very complicated giant glass Rubik's Cube, is the centrepiece of the top of Rye Lane where it meets Peckham High Street. Bellenden Road has a village feel more akin to what you'd expect in Dulwich than Peckham. And Peckham Rye Park and Peckham Rye Common cover 113 acres to the south of Peckham Rye Lane. Fans of Only Fools and Horses will be pleased to see there is a real Nag's Head pub in Peckham, although the filming in the pub, and indeed the whole programme, was mostly done in Bristol and other locations away from Peckham. Peckham does still have an edge to it. I'll put the city sounds on so you can hear for yourselves. And that, dear viewers, is why I have the cheesy music on in the background instead of trying to talk over the street sounds. Roughly, the ethnic demographics of Peckham are 5 out of 10 people are black, 3 out of 10 are white, 1 out of 10 South Asian, and 1 out of 10 others. Peckham isn't for everyone, but it seems to me a good example of how a diverse area can overcome challenges and improve its collective quality of life. Number 19, Westminster. That's right, the city of Westminster, the London borough with more crime than any other. I know what you're thinking, it must be because of all these criminals in the House of Commons. Well, yeah, there's that, but there's also a high amount of theft, mostly targeting tourists or shops, as well as alcohol and drug-related offences in the likes of Soho and Piccadilly. I went for an evening walkabout and find it quite tranquil. There are some tough-looking areas and homeless folk living in tents in a park, mainly keeping themselves. But I didn't see anything out of the ordinary. It dawned on me, it wasn't that dangerous. It's simply the way the statistics are compiled. Despite what some people might try to tell you, the vast majority of visits to Westminster and London as a whole are generally trouble-free. Just take the same precautions you would in any city around the world and you should be fine. Number 18. Hackney. In some places it's hard to find content. In places like Hackney, the content comes to you.
Why don't you kiss me black ass, me mother black ass?
Originally for this video I was going to visit Hackney District and separately Hoxton and Shoreditch, both part of the Hackney Borough. But I'm lumping them all in together as one because there is one word that ties them all together. And that word is gentrification. As we saw in Peckham, and we will see throughout this video, gentrification is common throughout in London these days. In the 80s and 90s, Hackney was London's poorest borough. Nowadays it's one of the most trendy boroughs in the capital. It's more man bun than man dem, more sourdough than shank you up, and more gluten free than Glock 19. Hackney has loads of churches, parks, some intimate blocks of flats, cool restaurants, cinemas, a little farm and a small but free museum. Hackney has had a long history of tolerance, especially a long history of Irish immigrants and a significant part of the Windrush generation. Hackney is now one of the most diverse boroughs in London. I'm not entirely sure what happened here. It was here in Hoxton that Guy Fawkes and others conspired to blow up Parliament in 1605. Years later, the self-proclaimed hardest man in Britain, Lenny McLean, roamed the streets here. Lenny's not around anymore, but if he was, he'd probably say something like, "If you don't want to be counting the fingers you haven't got, I suggest you hit the subscribe button and bell notification now." Shoreditch is the most famously gentrified area in perhaps all of London. If I worked for the tourist board, I'd probably use some cliché like, "This dynamic neighbourhood is a hub for artists, foodies and anyone craving a unique experience. From vibrant street art to eclectic eateries, Shoreditch offers an array of attractions that promise to delight and inspire." Ugh. Amongst the wall-to-wall bars, Box Park is probably the most well-known place for trendy hipster types to go and eat katsu curry and listen to deep house. This may sound like I'm stereotyping, but look at this restaurant for goodness sake. Hawaiian Peruvian. What's on the menu there? Pineapple glazed guinea pig? The borough of Hackney is now much safer than it was before, and really isn't a bad place at all. Just stay away from this guy.
Why don't you kiss me black ass, me mother black ass?
Number 17, Finsbury Park. Finsbury Park in North London is an important transport interchange in an area that built up around its large Victorian park by the same name. Finsbury Park, however, should not be confused with Finsbury, which is 3 miles south in the borough of Islington. Not at all confusing. Finsbury Park is generally a nice area. I decided to walk around the park and it took forever. It's rather on the large side. There really isn't much to film outside the park, so this is why you get an extended footage of these Canada geese and their gosling. Aren't they cute? In the early 2000s, Finsbury Park Mosque became notorious due to links with terrorist Abu Hamza, aka Captain Hook, who was later extradited to the US. Later in 2017, Muslims were mowed down in what was dubbed the Finsbury Park attack. Finsbury Park is close to both of North London's big football teams, especially Arsenal. It has a few independent shops, bars, restaurants, and residential areas have a nice feel to them. There's a lot of traffic, but overall Finsbury Park seems alright. The average house price in Finsbury Park is a whopping $686,000, although in London the average is $677,000. Gillespie Park is a bit of a lie. Supposedly it's a hidden oasis, but all it does is lead us along this track, alongside a railway line, onto our next destination. Number 16, Brixton. When I was an ignorant, impressionable child growing up in Kent, I would never believe I'd be one day walking through an estate in Brixton like this with a camera, and all thanks to one word: gentrification. Before World War II, Brixton was a fairly well-off neighbourhood, but much of it was levelled by the Luftwaffe. This led to a large housing crisis, clearance of slums, and a building of council housing. In the late 40s and 50s, many folk came to Brixton and found work. Brixton saw multiple riots throughout the years. In 1981, over police harassment, in 1985 for the police shooting a suspect's mother, and in 1995 a death of a black man in police custody. Later in 1999 a nail bomb was set off by somebody trying to create a race war. Wow. Since the turn of the millennium, Brixton has undergone regeneration. So what's it like today? Well, the area around the railway station I would describe as semi-chaotic, lots of people, loud music, the smells of 100 different types of food, and of course the smell of ganja. Brixton Market has all the exotic fruits, herbs and spices that you'd expect from an Afro-Caribbean market. You can get pretty much anything you want there. Pop Brixton is Brixton's answer to Box Park. Hopefully it gets a bit busier than this on the weekends. Brixton Academy is a famous events venue. This is where the Sex Pistols staged their reunion and the Smiths played their final gig. Electric Brixton, formerly known as Ace or The Fridge, is another popular venue. Apparently, this is the largest underground sign in all of London. We're gonna rock down to Electric Avenue. Yes, the famous song is named after this street in Brixton, the first market street in the world to be lit by electric lights. Nowadays it seemed to host an annoying teenager racing up and down on a line bike as fast as he could and narrowly missing people. The Ritzy Cinema dates back to 1911, the public library to 1890s and the town hall to 1908. Brixton is also home to the world's first department store. On the 8th of January 1947, David Bowie was born right here in Brixton. You can visit this mural around the corner from his birthplace. In Brixton you will see unhoused people, you will probably see crazy people, you will smell weed and you'll hear sirens going off. But you'll most likely have a much safer experience than you would have done years ago. Number 15, Woolwich. Woolwich has a long military history which we'll talk more about later, but what's the town itself like? Well, the first thing I want to address is this absolute monstrosity that dominates the town skyline, the Tesco Extra and the flats above and around it. This supermarket was opened in 2012 at a cost of £250 million and a couple of years later was awarded the Carbuncle Cup. That's the award for Britain's ugliest building. There's already 259 homes above the store and 700 are being built just in front of it. Not for me, thanks. Every little helps, more like every little hurts. Onto the town then, and building wise it's a mix of old and new, with the highlight probably being the interior of the Woolwich Town Hall. You can get just about any food you want here at a reasonable price. Woolwich was the location for the first McDonald's in the UK. In 1974, 21 pence brought you a cheeseburger. I didn't actually find this out until later, and I only have a footage of a Wimpy. For those of you that aren't from the UK, a Wimpy is sort of like a McDonald's, except you get cutlery in a plate. Woolwich is traditionally a market town, and you can find all sorts of goods and rubbish for good prices. 4 avocados and a punnet of grapes, £1 each. That's cheaper than Aldi. Woolwich train station is like something from a 1950s sci-fi B-movie. Until pretty recently, Woolwich has been a poor, deprived area and is now undergoing major regeneration. Woolwich is arguably most famous for its arsenal, formerly the most important armaments facility in Britain, with a history spanning from the 16th century right up until the 1960s. Woolwich Arsenal is where Arsenal Football Club was founded before their move to North London. It would be remiss of me not to mention that Woolwich was the site of the barbaric murder by terrorists of Fusilier Lee Rigby in 2013. You can visit his tree here, which stands as a memorial. Woolwich Ferry is completely free. It runs to North Woolwich on the north bank of the Thames. There's been a ferry operating here since the 1300s. Woolwich is okay. It's not necessarily somewhere I'd choose to live, apart from that it's a bit cheaper than most parts of London. But if I did have to live here, I'd have to find somewhere else to do my shopping. Number 14 is Lewisham. Now, Lewisham is a borough and a town. We're concentrating on just the town here. Lewisham is built up around its market, which has been going since 1906, and to this day it still runs 7 days a week. In 1944, a V1 bomb landed on the marketplace, killing 51 people. In 1957, a train crash saw 90 passengers and crew lose their lives. And in 1977, the Battle of Lewisham saw the National Front clash with counter-demonstrators, leading to the first use of riot shields in Britain. The largest police station in Europe was opened in Lewisham in 2004. So, another place with an eventful history. As you can see, Lewisham is pretty modern now, but by no means gentrified like Peckham and Brixton. Lewisham Shopping Centre has a lot of information outside on the history of the area, how you're not allowed to harass anyone in the area, and the plans for the future for the area. Inside the shopping centre, the shops seem okay, well, much better than this busker. I'm sorry, but if I had to hear it, then so do you. The Migration Museum has migrated to somewhere else. The market has crazily priced cheap fruit. I don't even know how they make a profit on this. It's a bit run down in places, but Lewisham feels like a safe place. I've been several times and I've never felt in any danger, apart from obviously the pain inflicted on my ears by buskers in shopping centres. The transport links are excellent, with DLR and trains to London Bridge, Charing Cross and London Victoria. I can't pretend to be a fan of the modern skyscraper type buildings here. They look like Lego to me. The residential areas in Lewisham seem pretty quiet, but the highlight for me is definitely the market. It certainly beats shopping in Tesco's, especially the one in Woolwich.
Romford has the friendliest people, that's for sure.
Number 13. Romford. A famous market town on the cusp of East End and Essex, I can confirm that Romford's people are indeed friendly. Since the closure of Walthamstow and Catford Greyhound tracks, Romford has the only track in London, and it also houses West Ham's training ground. I've been to Romford a number of times, and I always thought it was the kind of place where most of the fellas thought of themselves as a Danny Dyer or Ray Winston type of geezer. Gentrification hasn't arrived this far out of central London yet, so I was intrigued to see what it was like nowadays. It's always a visual and nasal delight to walk through an alley with fresh piss in it. And I always find it interesting when the cars look more expensive than the flats they're parked outside. Romford was built up heavily after World War II, and the usual shambolic architecture of the time has been installed. The largest shopping centre is called The Brewery, and it is massive. The most interesting part about it, to me, is the way that the cars go into the car park. Around the town centre, a lot of buildings are permanently closed. Concrete multi-storey car parks sit opposite 60s style flats and lockups. And there's a fair bit of garbage, shopping trolleys, crappy graffiti, that kind of thing going on. A lot of construction work is going on. The Elizabeth line has just opened up here, meaning travel to central London and Heathrow Airport is much easier. Romford could well be worth investing in for the future. Oh look, more trolleys. They've upturned that one. Maybe for a bit of artistic variety. I couldn't quite believe it when I saw this. Environmental crime scene. But they've left the wheelie bin there. Not every building in Romford is ugly. There's a few cottagey type places and traditional boozers. And according to some reports, Romford has the highest amount of cafes per square mile in Britain. The Havering Museum is housed here in the old Romford Brewing Company. The brewery had been going for 285 years when it closed permanently in 1993, as it served mainly ale, which had long since become unfashionable. Romford has a few shopping centres in town as well, we'll talk more about that later. And this is the St Edward the Confessor Church. I got to Romford much later in the day than planned, and I was expecting everything to be closed and the town to be dead when I arrived. And although the market had packed up for the day, there were still a lot of people about. And, well, not so many in the shopping arcades, obviously, but it was a nice evening. What the hell would you be doing in an empty shopping arcade? Come to think of it, what was I doing in an empty shopping arcade? Certainly not looking for pipes and comic books. Let's get out of here. This is the rather austere Havering Council building, rated 1.5 stars on Google, and the library next door isn't too appealing either. The sounds of Romford. Raphael Park is a nice place to go and feed the ducks, and I don't mean bread, that's not good for them. Get some proper duck food. Sapphire Ice Rink hosts the Romford Raiders, and the Liberty, that's another shopping centre. There are 3 shopping centres in the town centre, plus the market, plus the shopping arcade, and then the massive brewery shopping centre on the edge of town. I'm not sure what this statue is, it looks like a cross between Mr. Tickle and Human Centipede. And lovely, someone's drawn a cock and balls on there. From what you've seen so far, you're probably thinking Romford looks a half decent place, right? Well, don't you worry, I've saved the best for last. This is actually in the town centre. Surely this is an environmental crime scene like we saw earlier? Yeah, I'm not too sure what that's about. Nice to see another arty trolley. And another burnout bin. Well, hey, my favourite. The Helter Skelter multi-storey car park. What are you running for, mate? Don't you like Helter Skelter car parks? Romford isn't the worst place in London. It's not even worse than most of the places that surround it, which we'll be coming to later on in this series. Let's jump on this brand new Lizzie Line train then to our next destination. Alright, I'm going to give you a minute to try and guess number 12. It's somewhere a lot of people would expect to be near the top. It's in South London, and that's all the clues you're going to get. This is Wandle Park, which is in Croydon. Yes, Croydon is a large town. It's also a borough, but we're doing the town here. It's the largest town so far with almost 200,000 inhabitants and one hell of a bad reputation, or in this case that should be shitty reputation. I was crossing this bridge on the way to town and some dirty bugger had actually done an actual shit on the stairs and left their toilet roll on the stairs next to their log. Disgusting, and I apologise if you were eating your dinner there. Croydon is a diverse neighbourhood which is reflected in its people and its shops, and as someone who loves mangoes, this is great news. 3 mangoes for £1. Where else in the UK, let alone London, are you going to get 3 mangoes for £1? Bargains, bargains. Long cucumbers, yes please. And we see here that Lidl and the gym group have joined forces. Once you're done with mangoes, get on the vodka. This is the futuristic part of Croydon. The skyline has changed a lot in the last 10 to 15 years, but on the street level a lot of issues remain, or some might say they're getting worse. The Whitgift was London's largest shopping centre when it was opened in the late 60s. These days it's very much showing its age. The Centrale, if that's how you say it, is the more modern mall opposite. Centrale, whatever. The high street has lots of sales and lots of closed down shops going on. And tons of street art. At the very least, Croydon is certainly colourful. Noisy too. Here we have the Whitgift almshouses, built in the 16th century by the compassionate Archbishop John Whitgift to provide shelter for the poor and needy. This is a doorway for rubbish to be thrown into by the bloody lazy. We're going to head down into the old town of Croydon now. This is Surrey Street Market, which dates back to 1276. Again, loads of cheap fruit, veg, herbs and spices. These aren't the kinds of places most people in the media, or indeed YouTube videos, want you to see. Genuine tradition, positivity and vibrant colourful streets. Of course there is a well publicised dark side to Croydon, which we'll get to shortly. Croydon Minster, nobody's quite sure, but it is believed to be over 1,000 years old. The Croydon Tram Link is the only tram service in London, running approximately 17.5 miles across South London. This is a bad supermarket, according to their own sign. Like the vast majority of high streets, Croydon is going through some challenges, and we can't ignore the crime rate. Croydon is simply more dangerous than other places in London, and knife crime regularly makes the headlines. Not being funny, but it looks like that guy in front of me has crapped his pants. Box Park Croydon opened in 2016. I went there once when I was on a break whilst working up there. It was something like a tenner for avocado toast. I haven't been back. You might recognise it as the place they show on TV when England score a goal when everyone throws beer in the air. What a waste. Croydon is okay. It's developed massively economically wise and building wise, but socially there's still a hell of a lot of work to be done. And we're going to take you over to the other side of London now, and we're in Tottenham. Tottenham is of course famous for its football team, for being a very multicultural area, and for being the place where the 2011 riot started. Here in Tottenham, in summer 2011, after the police shooting of Mark Duggan, riots kicked off which eventually spread across London and all over England. Thankfully, these days it's a bit quieter, although gangs do still operate. The Tottenham High Road is where most of the action is. Food from all over the world is available. In one section, for example, there's Nigerian tapas, followed by 2 Colombian restaurants and then a Honduran restaurant. The shops are equally multinational, and I think these toilets might be out of order, Chief. The football stadium is here, and there's a couple of boozers and bookies right next door. They seem to understand their clientele. For such a state-of-the-art football stadium, it certainly looks like it's located in a pretty downtrodden area. This stadium was opened in 2019 and cost approximately £1.2 billion. This building opposite the stadium looks like it should be condemned and demolished. Look at that wall, it's barely holding on. And a complete contrast opposite. Now, I don't honestly know which estates to avoid in Tottenham, but I doubt I'd come to any of these at night time, especially not with my camera. So that's it for part 1. Come back for part 2 to see the top 10 worst places in London. We'll be carrying on and doing the whole of Britain as well this summer, right here on the Absolute Ranker channel.